That's why I open woke sessions. Mind, body, soul, no second guessing. Spilling truths, no sugarcoat dressing. Wisdom, honey, cash and knowledge, blessing. Hands to the streets, wide open the road. Eyes on the prize, ain't no time for jokes, lies, and eyes. These chains we roll, truth on the mic, destiny and vote. Hands to the streets, wide open.
Hey, how y'all doing out there? This Audie Rob with Wide Open Woke Podcast with information to make you want to say wow. Hey, I got some more information. Continue on the 9/11 information. That, as you know, that since they released those Epstien Files, they did talk about the 9/11 situation in those files too. All right, there's a lot of things and a lot of secrets that they did not explain, that they were hidden. That how U.S. was the ones that formed this 9/11 situation. Yes, they caused the 9/11. That's something that they've done allegedly, but yes, the information, they've always came out with information. But I got some more video evidence showing that how this stuff is orchestrated. We're going to go into that now without further ado. And away we go.
Show some compassion and let's help, our brothers and sisters out and really reinvestigate 9/11. I mean, it's changed our world. It's, not to mention that there were 343 brothers murdered, but we're at war over this. We've lost a lot of our freedoms over this, and we don't have the real story on what happened because there wasn't a proper investigation done.
Talk about number 7.
As reported by the New York Times, engineers were baffled by the collapse of Building 7. Since no steel frame high-rise has ever completely collapsed due to fire, how are we to understand this mysterious event?
My name is Scott Granger. I'm a licensed fire protection engineer. I'm licensed in 13 states. I've been in private practice for 25 years. I've been a practicing engineer for 39 years. 50% of my practice is in forensic engineering. Steel structural frame buildings, high-rise buildings, simply do not collapse due to fire.
What?
There has never been until 9/11 an experience where a high-rise building that was steel frame completely collapsed. There have been fires burned longer in similar structures without any collapse.
In my previous career as a firefighter, normally you'd never be afraid to go into a type 1 building because they're not combustible, and you would just charge at it and put the fire out. Never in my training were we ever taught that these type of buildings could just collapse in on themselves. There's definitely much more going on than just fire.
See?
The way in which steel-framed buildings behave in fires depends on their construction. In this test, done by British Steel in 1995, a large amount of typical office furniture was burned to see what would happen to the heavy steel beams that supported the ceiling.
When steel is bare, when it heats up, it gets weaker. It's not that it melts in a fire. In fact, normal fires are not hot enough to melt steel. Even if you were, for example, to use an unusual fuel like kerosene, you cannot achieve temperatures hot enough to melt steel. But what happens is it starts to lose its strength. And as it loses its strength, it starts to sag. It becomes softer and sags and can no longer support the load.
This was the largest test of its kind ever conducted. It showed how unprotected steel can be distorted, even by a normal office fire. But as is typical in steel buildings, the structural beams only slowly and progressively warped and sagged. There was no chance of a sudden collapse.
In over 20 years, I have not seen, until recently, a protected steel structure that has collapsed in a fire.
The World Trade Center 7 building reminds me of the Meridian Bank building in some ways in Philadelphia. The Meridian Bank building is a 38-story skyscraper that burned for 18 hours in 1991, suffered extensive damage from the fire, but did not collapse.
Wow.
I am Dan Barnum, FAIA, a graduate architect from Rice University with a Bachelor of Architecture degree. For the 40-plus years that I've been practicing architecture, I have designed a variety of buildings from small houses to high-rise office buildings. Some of the high-rises that I've worked on are 1 shell and 2 shell here in Houston, and I was project manager for a 22-story office building in Akron, Ohio. I'm a fellow of the American Institute of Architects. I've designed high-rise buildings, and I know what they do in fires because I've studied that. Later in the day, when World Trade Center 7 collapsed, they had already showed us pictures of a few fires in that building, and I mean, they weren't even raging. And how could that cause a building to collapse as if it were imploded? Couldn't happen.
Right. Couldn't happen.
My name is Jonathan Smolens, PE.
It happened.
I'm a professional structural engineer in the Boulder, Denver area for the past 12 years. And one of my specialties is forensic engineering, including evaluation of structures post-disaster. What happened to those columns to all collapse at the same time? The explanation provided does not match the evidence that we have.
Go ahead.
My name is Michael Donnelly, PE. I'm a structural engineer with 14 years of experience. I get involved mostly with the design of steel-framed fireproof buildings. We've never had a steel-framed skyscraper collapse in the United States or internationally. So there's no precedent. I don't think Building 7 could have collapsed by...
Wait a minute. Now, you know, they telling y'all this has never happened ever in the U.S. history before 9/11 has happened. So believe me, when they did this and planned this to happen, when they put those explosives down in the bottom of Building 7, they were trying to remove Building 7. Matter of fact, that was the whole reasoning behind 9/11 was to remove Building 7. Why? Because Building 7 had information that they should not have had, or they were trying to remove or know someone else from seeing. This goes deeper than that. But yes, this stuff was all set up.
Fire, as NIST tells us, that this collapse mechanism, starting with thermal expansion, that worked its way upward and outward through the building, in a matter of seconds, there's not enough time for the building to collapse the way that NIST tells us it collapsed.
I'm Ed Woniak, licensed fire protection engineer for at least 25 years, and I work for a number of organizations, city, federal, large insurance companies, consultant, always in the area of fire safety, and with the goal of keeping the public safe and first responders safe. I became fascinated with the government's version of the events on 9/11, because this is totally contrary to everything that I've ever experienced, either working in the field of fire safety or knowing what I know about mechanical engineering. It defies many fundamentals of mechanics and materials and physics and just many fundamental engineering concepts.
World Trade Center 7, NIST claims the fires were very large, very hot, and long-lasting, when in reality, observation, which has been researched by many people, shows these fires did not last very long. They were not in the locations where NIST claims they were at given times.
Liars.
According to lead investigator Shyam Sunder of the National Institute for Standards and Technology, NIST, World Trade Center 7 collapsed at free-fall acceleration for more than 100 feet of its fall. What does the speed of the collapse reveal to us?
Break it down.
Essentially, in less than 7 seconds, Tower 7 came down upon itself.
Building 7, NIST reports admits fell at the rate of gravity for the first 100 feet. Well, that's impossible unless there's nothing resisting it.
It's just like taking your car keys out and just dropping them. That's how fast the building came down, for over 100 feet. And the only way you can get that is when there's zero resistance.
Resistance from the bottom.
So what we're looking at is a building just coming straight down
means the whole
falling
bottom
right
was taken
through
out.
itself with zero resistance. Buildings don't have zero resistance, which is why you feel comfortable walking into a building.
A building cannot do free fall with a huge steel structural system in place to support it without it being blown up. That's the only way it could come down at free fall.
Only way.
Failure of all these connections as the primary means of structural failure is inconsistent with a natural gravitational collapse and indicates the presence of other agents which would dismember these connections.
I'm David Chandler. I have a bachelor's degree in physics from Harvey Mudd College and a master's in education from Claremont Graduate University and another master's in mathematics from California Polytechnic University. I've been teaching for over 30 years. I'd heard people say, well, it came down at free fall or close to free fall and so forth, so I decided I'd measure it myself. I have a tool that I use in teaching which allowed me to take a video and put a dot on each frame to follow the motion of things. And so you can measure speeds and accelerations and it'll do the analysis. One of the fundamental laws of nature is the conservation of energy. In order for it to be falling down with zero resistance, it means that resistance had to have been removed by something else.
And NIST claims that the columns were buckling in the first several seconds before the free fall occurred. Now, I don't see how that's possible.
And in the final report, they modified it, they tried to doctor it up. They still tried to say that it was essentially correct, but then they modified it and they actually admitted there was a period of free fall involved. But they never changed their model. Like, how do you all of a sudden allow for free fall when they just got done explaining how it couldn't
what about
have
the
been
resistance?
If I were a scientist in this, I'd be embarrassed to try to put forward something like that. It was clearly a fraudulent argument.
In other words, NIST is telling us that the building below it ceased to exist for the first few seconds of the collapse of the building. Well, things in physics just don't cease to exist and cease to resist the forces that are on them.
Free falling for 8 stories. So, we know that happened.
Boy.
Okay, it's been measured and it's on videos. Everyone can see it. NIST has admitted it went into free fall for 8 stories. That's a bothersome part of the puzzle.
Man, that's crazy. Okay, check that out. Free fall. So that thing free fell for 100 feet. Free fell, like it had no resistance down underneath it. That means they blew out all the structure from underneath it. So it have a complete free fall to come straight down. Just exactly the way they wanted to. They set that up, y'all. They planned that whole 9/11 situation just to take out building number 7. Now, let me get into some more of the information that I got going on here, because there's some more information that's got some more video files that we can go into on this doggone 9/11 situation, because this is one firefighter who does have information. Check this out.
Reporting here from Times Square. I am standing next to Rudy Dent. He's a 32-year veteran of the New York City Fire Department. He's worked as well with the New York City Police Department. And you retired right after 9/11. He was there on 9/11. He saw World Trade Center Tower 7 come down. Rudy, tell us about what happened that day.
Well, I was off that day, and I received a call at home, and I got to see both buildings come down on TV. I jumped on my motorcycle. I did about 120 miles an hour across the Tappan Zee. I reported to my firehouse, and then I got my gear. A bunch of us got together. We commandeered a mail truck, and we made our way down to the site. At that time, Building 7 was still up. I saw Building 7 come down. My fellow firefighters who were there, they did that involuntary jerk when a loud explosion goes off. You know, you can't help it, and they did. I'm a Vietnam veteran too, so I kind of didn't jump like they did, but there was an explosion. The building did come down in complete classical controlled demolition. It came down on its own footprint. There's no question about that. As a matter of fact,
Richard Gage from Architects and Engineers has completely handled that from his area of expertise. Okay.
Now we heard rumblings, things that the fire department was saying that they were overhearing Larry Silverstein talking about talking to his insurance company of whether or not he should have the building pulled. In your professional opinion, was the building pulled?
Well, let me say this. In the New York City Fire Department, as I said, I had 32 years there. I was a chauffeur, and I was also a trained fire marshal. A fire marshal is considered an expert witness in court. He's like a forensic detective. He has the power to administer the oath, take testimony, and issue a subpoena. That's a lot of power. And he's a highly trained investigative person in his area of expertise, in arson. And we have no term that I know of that says pulling buildings. That's not our area of expertise. We've never done that. We don't do that. So for him to say that, I don't know where he pulled that out of, but it's just
pulled it out of his ass.
Operations, okay?
Right, so the fire department doesn't have the training to pull a building, to demo a building like that.
We're not trained to do that. We've never done that in my 32 years. I know of no evolution whatsoever that does that.
And then talk to me a little bit, obviously, as a professional in the fire department for 30 plus years, they're saying that blaming it on office fires, just a few office fires.
Well, if it wasn't so serious a situation, that would be completely laughable. That is ridiculous. First of all, our guys were up there. They were calling for additional hand lines to mop up the isolated pockets of fire. And let me just explain one thing. Never in the history of the world, never in the history of high-rise skyscrapers has ever a skyscraper ever come down because of fire. And I'm talking massive fire. And you know the reason why? Because fire does not burn by itself hot enough to compromise and melt steel. What we had in the World Trade Center, and I saw myself, was molten lava-like pockets of molten steel. All right, I spent the night on the pile searching for bodies, and I saw that with my own eyes. So who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe a bunch of government bureaucrats or my fellow brothers, which I lost 343 guys that day? And I lost Tommy O'Hagan, Bruce Van Hines, and Kenny Kumpel. And I can never forget that. I think of that before I go to bed. I think about it the first thing in the morning when I wake up. And it's in honor of them and their family that I will continue to do everything I can to make the rest of the world wake up to the fact that this was a false flag operation.
See, that tells you right there, man. Come on now. So they plan this. So y'all see what they got going on right now? This is another false flag operation they got going on in Iran right now. Okay? Another false flag. The other false flag that they got stirring up as they went ahead and went against Iran is the PSYOP situation. Oh, the MK5? Yeah, I need to bring that information out too. That's something that we're going to get into, is that MK5. The PSYOPs. Because see, once they put things in place, they got to establish the fear, right? Here comes the fear. So they've been getting these people that they've been taking up off these homeless places, people who they've been capturing. They've been kind of like apprehending them and bringing them into these closed structures. And they end up doing experiments on them, giving them money, giving them food, shelter, just to provide experiments on them. They get in there and get those experiments performed on them. Next thing you know, they're being drug induced. And they're watching these symbolisms and these things that's being portrayed to them as they're being drug induced. Now all we gotta do is put some clothing on this guy to make him tied to what we want him to be tied to, and have him go out with a gun and unalive some people right when we start this occasion over here in Iran to help support what we're doing over here in Iran, so he can cause chaos in America. Okay, out of the blue, this guy ain't got his head on straight or nothing, and there's something he's psyop controlled right now. He done went ahead and out there and unalived some people, and they had to take him out. But that's their excuse now. That's their excuse to start fear on you through this situation. Okay, this is the part of the mantra that needs to take place. Don't forget, 2 people, unalivings. Those are the ritual requirements that we always requires 2 unalivings. No less than 2 unalivings. No less. So they perform this. So now they're over in Iran going after the Stargate, going up against the Coboul, and that's what the whole situation is going on right now. The war is just a front. Just a front, but it's a psyop situation. So yes, 9/11, that was one of their masterpieces that they did on psyops. Yep, got all the terrorists in place, programmed them just right, got everything lined up. They knew them terrorists. They knew who they picked. They had their IDs and visas. Remember that one visa from one of them terrorists? How can it survive being burnt up and everything? And they just happened to find it undamaged and everything. But he was one of the plane terrorists. Now, how did that doggone passport and all that stuff survive that? Y'all think this thing people stupid, but we ain't stupid. Okay, we ain't stupid. We figuring this shit out. Okay, so that's how we going about looking at this. Yeah. So there's more evidence that's out there. I'm telling y'all, there's more evidence that's out there that's telling all kind of information about this. The national security alert, the painful deceptions of this, the 9/11 conspiracy theory, more and more and more. Let's get past this part right here.
These 19 hijackers, devout religious fundamentalists who like to drink alcohol, snort cocaine, and live with pink-haired strippers, managed to knock down 3 buildings with 2 planes in New York. While in Washington, a pilot who couldn't handle a single-engine Cessna was able to fly a 757 in an 8,000-foot descending 270-degree corkscrew turn to come exactly level with the ground, hitting the Pentagon in the budget analyst office where DoD staffers were working on the mystery of the $2.3 trillion that Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld had announced missing from the Pentagon's coffers in a press conference the day before, on September 10th, 2001. Luckily, the news anchors knew who did it within minutes.
Osama bin Laden.
The pundits knew within hours.
Osama bin Laden.
The administration knew within the day.
Terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbored them.
And the evidence literally fell into the FBI's lap.
That a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site. Can you believe that?
But for some reason, a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists demanded an investigation into the greatest attack on American soil in history. That investigation was delayed, underfunded, set up to fail, a conflict of interest, and a cover-up from start to finish. It was based on testimony extracted through torture, the records of which were destroyed. It failed to mention the existence of WTC-7, Able Danger, P-TECH, Sibel Edmonds, OBL and the CIA, and the drills of hijacked aircraft being flown into buildings that were being simulated at the precise same time that those events were actually happening. It was lied to by the Pentagon, the CIA, the Bush administration, and as for Bush and Cheney, well, no one knows what they told it because they testified in secret, off the record, not under oath, and behind closed doors.
Wow.
It didn't bother to look at who funded the attacks because that question is ultimately of little practical significance. Still, the 9/11 Commission did brilliantly answering all of the questions the public had, except most of the victims' family members' questions, and pinned blame on all the people responsible, although no one so much as lost their job, determining the attacks were
failure of imagination.
Because
Nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
Except the Pentagon, FEMA, NORAD, and the NRO. The DIA destroyed 2.5 terabytes of data on Able Danger, but that's okay because it probably wasn't important. The SEC destroyed their records on the investigation into the insider trading before the attacks, but that's okay because destroying the records of the largest investigation in SEC history is just part of routine record keeping. NIST has classified the data that they used for their model of WTC-7's collapse, but that's okay because knowing how they made their model of the collapse would jeopardize public safety. The FBI has argued that all material related to their investigation of 9/11 should be kept secret from the public, but that's okay because the FBI probably has nothing to hide. This man never existed, nor is anything he had to say worthy of your attention, and if you say otherwise, you are a paranoid conspiracy theorist and deserve to be shunned by all of humanity. Likewise him, and her, and her, and her, and him.
Wow.
Osama bin Laden lived in a cave fortress in the hills of Afghanistan, but somehow got away. Then he was hiding out in Tora Bora, but somehow got away. Then he lived in Abbottabad for years, taunting the most comprehensive intelligence dragnet employing the most sophisticated technology in the history of the world for a decade, releasing video after video with complete impunity and getting younger and younger as he did so, before finally being found in a daring SEAL team raid which wasn't recorded on video, in which he didn't resist or use his wife as a human shield, and in which these crack special forces operatives panicked and killed this unarmed man, supposedly the best source of intelligence about those dastardly terrorists on the entire planet. Then they dumped his body in the ocean before telling anyone about it. Then a couple dozen of that team's members died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan. This is the story of 9/11, brought to you by the media which told you the hard truths about...
His head could be seen to move violently forward.
And...
They took the babies out of the incubators.
And...
Mobile production facilities.
And...
The rescue of Jessica Lynch.
If you have any questions about this story, you are a batshit, paranoid, tinfoil, dog-abusing baby hater and will be reviled by everyone. If you love your country and or freedom, happiness, rainbows, rock and roll, puppy dogs, apple pie, and your grandma, you will never ever express doubts about any part of this story to anyone. Ever. This has been a public service announcement by the Friends of the FBI, CIA, NSA, DIA, SEC, MSM, White House, NIST, and the 9/11 Commission.
They can all kiss my ass. Man, so now y'all see it. So now you see it. This stuff was all put up by America. They killed their own people to hide information. It's all, man, this is crazy. They don't care about us. Like Mike Jackson used to sing. They don't really care about us. He was right. This is stuff that's coming out about Michael Jackson too. I'm going to get into that story one time because of how they portrayed and how they made him look like a pedophile. When he had all the secrets on them people already, and they had him looking like he was some kind of pedophile. And the reason why he developed Never Never Land, it was something because he already knew what Epstein was doing, and he was trying to save the children. Y'all don't know the whole doggone story behind the whole PSYOP situation and how they cover shit up. But it's all coming out now. It's funny how years of information have been suppressed and people have been put down and talked about. And then all of a sudden you find out later on, like, reason why they were put down and talked about is because they had information on the doggone people above them that was holding them down. Guess what? All your control about to come down now. We ain't scared of fuck about y'all. Okay? All y'all stuff. Everything that is last is now about to become first. We are now in the age of Aquarius. All truth must come forth. You cannot stop this. What's about to hit you upside your head. You can't stop it. It's going to be oops upside your head. Y'all can't stop it. It's a cosmic event. No power on earth can stop what's about to happen. All this truth has to come forth. You can't hide it. I was telling people, y'all better burn them bones in the closet. You got some skeletons in that closet, you better burn them bones because they about to come to life. All secrets about to come forth. Yep. So everything about the church, about religion, all the secrets, everything coming out. And I'm so glad because I got a lot of people who I want to look dead in your face and talking about you've been doing all these shit for years and it's been for nothing. It's been for nothing. Of course, okay, you did this, you did that. But you did it under control where you could have done things your own way, right? But now you stay stuck in that construct because there's more to the story. That's I have to go on another podcast when you get to that part of the story because there's a way out of this construct. But they'll never know it in the church because they're gonna come back and supply that 8th level, be like neon, like they're gonna have what's his name, Elon Musk as their god, and one of those sentient beings trapped inside one of those synthetic bit bodies that won't never die. Without divine consciousness spark, your consciousness will just be trapped within that sentient being forever on this next construct. I do not plan to be here for that. But anyway, I'll tell you how to get out of that for the next podcast. This is Wide Open Woke Podcast. About to come in with you with more information and make you want to say wow. You know it. I love it. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and call it a night. But we coming back with more information because I ain't gonna stop. They keep blocking me on TikTok, but hey, I don't care. We're going to get this stuff done. Ever since it was owned by U.S., got taken over by U.S., they've been blocking everything. But they can't block all this good information that's coming out because they can't block truth. They think they can stop truth. We're going to show y'all how y'all can stop truth. Intro. Take me up.
Flash wide open woke sessions. Mind, body, soul, no second guessing. Spilling truths, no sugarcoat dressing. Wisdom hunting, cash and knowledge blessing. Hands to the streets, wide open the road. Eyes on the prize, ain't no time for jokes, lies and highs. These change me, whoa. Truth on the mic, destiny and vote. Here's to